What's going on, everybody? Dogman Dan here. We're in Warframe. We're talking about ZEPHYR today. So I've got a build put up for you or ready for you, so I'll show you that towards the end of this video, but let's kind of talk about this and go through the abilities here. For anyone that doesn't know, ZEPHYR is picked up through the Tenno lab in your clan dojos. If you don't have a clan, you're going to need to get into a clan dojo in order to get the parts required for ZEPHYR. So the helmet, the chassis, and the systems are all found within the Tenno lab and the actual blueprint itself, and it will take you 12 hours for each of the parts and 72 hours for the actual frame build itself. No different than any other frame. Okay, abilities. Tailwind. Tailwind is focused, the abilities, the power strength and power range mod for this. You can use power duration as well. The power duration actually just affects the height of the actual tailwind, so when you used it off the ground, it can propel you generally without a duration up to 7 meters, I believe it is, or with an actual duration mod, you can reach heights all the way up to 12.8 meters. Now, what's nice about this one is it will deal up to 250 impact damage within a 7-meter radius from ZEPHYR's actual launch point, and that damage will also have a 100% chance to knock down enemies in an AoE effect. Damage is affected by the power strength, and it will decrease with the distance. As well, if you're flying through the air and you're flying at enemies, you can do up to 250 slash damage, and it can be inflicted up to 2-meter radius from ZEPHYR. Again, this is affected by the strength and the range when you're heading forward movement, not up in the air, but forward movement through the enemies. Okay, Dive Bomb. Dive Bomb is going to be utilized with Tailwind. Basically, you're going to pop off Tailwind, and when you get up to a nice range, you just hit Dive Bomb, and you're going to get up to 250 impact damage within a 7-meter radius as well. The final damage will depend on the height at which the power was activated. Activating it, though, at less than 4 meters will deal no extra damage. If you activate it at the highest point you can get, this can actually triple the base damage. This does also have a 100% chance to knock down enemies in an AoE. And the damage is going to be affected by power strength, and you're going to also have power range in here for the blast area effect. Okay, Turbulence. Turbulence is a really great ability. This is going to be affected by power range and duration mods. And basically how this works is Turbulence will create a 360-degree windshield around ZEPHYR, which will make her completely invulnerable to all direct damage projectile weapons, so something like the Boltor, the Sestra, the Dara, basically weapons that actually fire bullets. The visual bullets will bounce off the shield's inner radius, which actually has a range of up to 4 meters on the inside of the Turbulence. Now, for weapons like hit scan weapons, the Turbulence will work more like an aura, and the outer radius will have a range of 25 meters. All enemies being in the outer radius whose rounds happen to intersect with Turbulence's inner radius will suffer actually a precision debuff. This precision debuff will only be applied to hit scan weapons, and the hit scan weapon shots do not ricochet off the inner radius, so they can actually cause damage to ZEPHYR if they actually hit her, so just keep that in mind. It really only affects projectile weapons. In terms of other weapons, melee weapons, the throwable melee weapons will get redirected. Grenades and rockets are indeed redirected, but their explosions are not, so if an explosion went off in front of you, that's not redirected, but the actual rocket would have been. Okay, finally we're going to talk about the Tornado ability. The Tornado ability is affected by power strength, range, and duration. And you can have up to 4 tornadoes at any given time with up to a 25-meter radius on this one. What's interesting is it will actually deal up to 32 magnetic damage per tick, and the tick occurs roughly 3 to 5 per second. Now, the tornado spawning, when it spawns, it will deal up to 200% damage on its inflict of the first tick, and it will be affected by the power strength as well. Each tick of the damage will actually have a moderate status chance or proccing ability. And what's really nice about this one that maybe not a lot of people know is that shooting the tornadoes with a weapon that actually has element damage on it will cause them to take on that elemental damage type of that particular weapon. And if you have a weapon that has multiple element types, it will actually take whatever the highest raw damage element type is and utilize that in that tornado. There's a couple things to note here. Power range is something that I don't utilize on this frame. I found that with utilizing the power range that my tailwind was too much of a launch radius, if you will, and that with the tornadoes they would be so far stretched out that you would have no control over the placement of them, and that placement is generally based off of where your crosshairs is. But when you have it so much on a far range, it's not really going to affect, or it's not really going to help you out where it needs to be. So with that said, let's go ahead and take a look at the actual build that I've got set up. Alright, let's go ahead and take a look at what we've got here for ZEPHYR. Now, after playing around with it, I ended up going with one extra forma in this build. And that was basically to swap out for Energy Siphon. Beyond that, I had played around with a couple different mods, but as you can see, I ended up with just a straight original setup. And this one works for me. It is not a perfect build, but with 1050 health and 1050 shield, you add turbulence on top of that, you're going to stay alive most of the time. Tailwind and dive bomb, obviously we talked about that a minute ago, and tornado. Now, the reason that I don't have stretch on here is, as I was saying, stretch, yes, it's great for range and really affects the tailwind, getting you clear across the map, and the tornado, you know, spreading them out. But the problem is the spread on the tornadoes is way too much. So my recommendation here is to get yourself with vitality and redirection. If you've got the max, you're going to have to put in another forma for this bad boy. But since mine are not maxed, I don't have to do an extra forma yet. I go for continuity for a little duration. I like to have some duration in there. This actually gives me the tornado and turbulence up to 25 seconds, which on turbulence that's great. Sometimes it can be a downside on tornado, but for the most part, you're okay. Flow, of course, for the max power, because you only got 300 power with this. You need to have some kind of power efficiency, so I just went with a straight streamline. I didn't want to have negative duration, so no fleeting expertise here. And, of course, intensify for the power strength, which is affected for the tailwind and the tornado. And that's it. It's pretty simple. I was amazed after going over with it, and the guys in the clan will tell you we talked for about half an hour or an hour on this, and I was just going nuts because I had this all set up crazy, and I ended up coming right back to an original setup, basic, simple, and powerful. Anyway, hit that like button for me if you did like this video. Comments, questions, any of that good jazz below. Subscribe if you're not subscribed, and I will catch you guys in the next episode. Thank you for watching. See you later.